What is up, podcast world? Welcome to another day. Oh, not podcast world. What is up, podcast people? Welcome to another day, another episode. It's been a hot minute since we had an episode. We got Riley and Kayla and the pod squad with us today.
I'm Kayla.
Yeah, this is
Riley.
We got Riley, Kayla, JK, Riley,
This is
Kayla.
Cam.
I'm Josh. Nice to meet you guys. But yeah, it's been a minute. Sorry for the month break we took. Kayla and I got married. Went on a honeymoon and bought a house. All in 2 weeks. So it was crazy. But we're back here with another episode today. Today, the goal of this episode is to equip our small group leaders to facilitate a conversation. So if you're listening right now and you're like, man, I'm not a small group leader, I don't go to 3 Strands, that's cool, right? The goal is to equip you, whoever is listening, on how to lead other people in a group setting. Like, hey, if you got a small group of people hanging out at your house, right? People in school, people at church, maybe just a group of friends, wherever at, how can you be the person to step up and to just lead that environment, to create an atmosphere and an environment where everybody feels welcome and seen and heard, and you can just keep pointing people to Jesus in a very chill way and not hey, we need 10 icebreaker questions and let's get really awkward. But how can you
don't do that.
Go around, say your
Don't
name,
do
where
that.
you're from in a circle.
Don't do that.
So you can just be that person, just naturally lead, right? To connect people to other people, share your stories, share testimonies. So that's the purpose of this episode. It's kind of how to facilitate a small group atmosphere and environment. From the jump, so we know all of our backgrounds, what is y'all's experience? Start with you, Kayla. What is your experience with small groups in general? Did you grow up in youth and VBS, with small groups? Just started joining one a year ago? What is just your background experience with being a part of a small group?
So I did co-lead a women's small group with a church that I previously was at. And then I did have the opportunity to actually be in a small group through 3 Strands when we first launched them last year.
Wow, that was last year. That's right.
Yeah, it's been a year, so it's really, really crazy.
So you're in one of our young adult ones, and then co-led a women's one.
Yeah.
Where at?
Well, it was at a church that I previously attended, but it was mostly we joined a Facebook group, and through Facebook, we kind of recruited females that come to this. We met in a park.
Let's go.
And so that's all we did. Me and this other girl, where she posted, she was like, does anybody want to lead this? And we both were just like, okay, let's do this. And so it was just kind of a spare of the moment. And it lasted I would say probably 3 or 4 months of just meeting randomly. It'd be like, hey, tomorrow, who can come? So it was kind of just something like that.
Nice.
So pro tip, if it's on your heart to start a group, just post on Facebook who wants to pull up to the park, and then for the next 4 months.
Facebook groups for everything.
Facebook is the new Craigslist.
That's how you are old. Anyways, Riley, what is your
Okay, I am 24. All right.
24, what is your small group background experience?
In high school, we went to the same small group for 3 years,
Mm-hmm.
So cute.
4 years,
4 years.
4 years. Yeah. So did that. We were a part of it. We didn't lead it, thank God. But we were a part of it. And then when I went to Southeastern, I was asked to lead missions trips over to Samoa, Tonga, Fiji, all that area. This was right before COVID, but it's the small groups leading up to it, preparing, discipling those students that I was going to lead over there, going through that. And then my home church in Florida, Access Church, me and my wife were a part of small groups there for 2 years. On and off, that flowed with the natural progression of the seasons, and then once at another church in Florida. So some leading, mostly being just a part of. Yeah,
that's good. And mine grew up in church, been a part of a small group, ever since 6th grade, when a small group kind of was a thing in our youth ministry. So from 6th grade to 12th grade, super plugged into it. Then after graduating high school, actually my junior year, so around 2017, started leading small groups in youth ministry for the 6-7 years, and now young adult groups here and there. So we both have been a part of one, and both have led one in some capacity. So the goal now is, what are some things that you have seen that have worked to just create a chill environment that doesn't feel like, not pressured. It's not man, I am forced to be here in this place and forced to get to know these people. But just a natural, calm, chill environment. What have been some things that you have either led out in and has worked, or, man, you've sit down and been a part of it and you're like, hey, I really liked when we did this because it made it just feel chill and natural.
Shout out to Pause. She's my small group leader. Our first ever like meeting, we painted prayer boxes. Like it was just little boxes of wood.
Awesome.
And we had paint, and we all just got to paint it because a lot of us was like pretty new to Three Strands too, or you had some veterans, and so no one really knew each other. And it was funny because during this moment, we all were like actually talking about how we're petrified of people and how we always think like people hate us, and we all felt that way, but we all love everyone. And so we were like, wait, you love me? And we're like, yeah. And they were like, wait, but you think I hate you? And we were like, yeah. Like, and so we got the bond and like kind of like let go of all of our fear of like people not liking us by like painting these cute prayer boxes that I still have in my closet. And so I think like the first initial part was like so good for us to just like do that and just like exist and do some kind of like craft where if it did get quiet, we could just like paint more or something. Rather than like sitting in a circle and being, all right, Genesis or something. Like, I think that was a good leeway into like just knowing everybody and going from there.
Yes, that's a good pro tip. Having like something you can fidget with.
Yeah.
Or do.
Don't make like eye contact
during the conversation.
I don't want to sit face to face with somebody.
Yeah, that's good. Having something like some type of activity, something people can fidget with and just kind of be anxious about with their hands while they're having conversations.
Yeah. Take the pressure off.
Yeah.
Don't have like, give me your favorite things to do. 3 top things. It's like, bro, this is not kindergarten. Relax.
So has that been something you've seen work well? Or how is the
taking off icebreaker questions?
Or just taking the pressure off, right? Or something that has made
something that like you experienced that took the pressure?
It just depends on, it's really hard, obviously, but you have to sort of know your crowd. Like, personally, that wouldn't work for me. I'm not trying to paint no boxes. That's a really cool idea.
What are men going to go do? Let's go grill
for somebody else. Yeah. Like, hey, let's go shoot some guns. Let's go fishing. You know? Like,
legally and safely.
Yes.
Firearms.
Yes. Safety first. I don't know. It just, like, do your homework the best you can for the crowd. You can never do enough homework.
Stalk your whole small group's Instagram and get to know them before they all meet
TikTok,
together.
Do
that's
it
very
all.
real,
No,
though.
just kidding.
Right? Because if you know your crowd and you know, like, hey, if I have a group and I have 3 guys in my group, all 3 of them love football. Oh, man, all right, so I'm going to make my groups meet on Thursday night, and we're going to watch Thursday night football. And then at halftime, we're going to take a break and flip gears. But, like using what they like, right? Hey, but you got a group of girls, man, you guys love crafting, right? And being creative, man, let's paint this. But now if I took the group of guys who love football and I said, hey, who wants to go like watch a soccer game? Yeah, you know, that's cool. Yeah. Or, hey, who wants to just sit down right now and go through the book of Genesis? Yeah, you know, it's cool. What's the score of the football game, right? Like knowing your crowd, and then how can you leverage knowing who your demographic is you're reaching to? How can you leverage the knowledge that you know about them to then switch gears into a conversation? So knowing your crowd, yeah, that's a good pro tip. What has been something you guys have seen not work? Like, hey, I was a part of it. You don't have to call anybody out by name because, you know, both Steel Creek OGs here. But, hey, I was either a part of this or I tried leading out in this way, and it was a crash and burn. It was not, you know, either the environment got awkward, some people just dipped out and like, hey, I'm going to play on my phone for the next 2 hours because this is just not it. You know, whatever it may be, that just did not land that well.
Honestly, I've never been a part of a small group that has crashed so hard.
Wow.
Like even opening, like even opening,
like that first meeting.
Like it was never like harsh, but also I'm an extrovert, so like it's hard. For
you
me.
Probably didn't feel that way, but the introverts were probably like, I don't like this.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, so I guess like reading the room. Other than like myself, like self-awareness, I guess reading the room, just like that typical icebreaker questions, I know like a lot of people tense up about, and I don't even like those types of questions, but it's like the very typical small group where you envision like, all right, so how did you come to Christ? And like, which those are very great questions to know eventually, but those feel forced. So I guess ultimately saying like forcing questions that aren't coming organically is like, that's a huge caution.
Yeah. Forcing questions that don't come organically. Yeah, no, that's good. That's good. I mean, I think that's the church stereotype when it comes to a small group, right? When somebody thinks small group, it's, man, I'm going to show up to this meeting. I'm about to share my entire life story from start to finish and every sin struggle. And the first 30 minutes we meet, and it just feels like forced. And so that's good. Just make it organic, make it natural. What about you, Kayla?
What was the question?
Something that it just didn't.
I feel like this happens every time.
It didn't fit that well, didn't land that well, didn't feel that great. Like, it was just.
I think like all small groups, or like depending on how they get planned, is like the accountability factor. I think everybody's human, and we all have schedules. And I think sometimes like you'll have someone fall off every now and then. They miss this one, or like you just don't want to make it a habit. And so it's always the thing to where it's like you can miss once but don't miss twice. Like people say that about the gym. It's like you can go one day but don't miss 2 days in a row or something like that.
I've missed about 2 years.
Yeah, when did we get married? But no, just like that is like that gets tricky too in a small group where you're first joining 8 people together, and then as you go you have like your solid 3. Like. Yeah. And I think, like, as the leader, you need to just be aware of the accountability that you're setting from day one, that, like, this is what we're doing. You committed to this day. I understand things come up, but, like, let's communicate. Let's stay on track. Like, so I think that does come up, and, like, that can be, like, a hindering to where then it's, like, you're trying to build bonds with these people, but there's 3 of them now. Like, so that gets, like, in a weird water situation. But, like, again, everyone's human. Our schedules get really wonky, but it's just knowing how to hold accountability in a loving way.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's good.
Yep.
I would say something I've seen lower the ceiling on what a group could be or could become is the lack of clarity from the jump. That's usually just about every church small group. The leader goes to the small group leaders, right? Hey, just pick a Devo, pick a book of the Bible, kind of just whatever's on your heart, share that. Let's go through it. And then, so a lack of clarity of what the leader is expected to do, right? Hey, do I just go with what's on my heart, do a verse of the day, a Devo book, and we all go through it together, pick up the book in the Bible, and we go through, like, a lack of clarity on what the small group leader is kind of expected to do. And then also the people in the group having a lack of clarity of what they're committing to. Like, so that's why I think you see people like, man, you start out with a group of 8 people, 2 weeks in, it goes to 3 people because they didn't know, like, no, I should probably be committed to this for this reason. Like, hey, so giving clarity from the jump, like, hey, if you're the person leading the group, what is the expectations that you're going to have? That's something we just learned that that's why we're doing this differently in the fall, to have clear expectations across the board that, hey, this is the purpose of this group. The goal is to make disciples that make disciples. So if that's the goal, we're going to do that by each week all going and tracking kind of on the same level. And I think sometimes we're scared to put almost like a goal or standard or metric when it comes to groups. But I think it's, or target, whatever, anything to identify, hey, this is the purpose of why we're meeting, because we're scared we may not meet that purpose. Like, hey, if you tell me that in 13 weeks we got to go through Jesus, the Bible, prayer, worship, find it, like just a lot of stuff in 13 weeks, I'm scared I'm not going to meet that expectation, right? But then it helps, then you bring in accountability, right? If hey, here's the line that we're trying to all hit together weekly. Did we hit it? Okay, cool. If not, why not? Like, let's evaluate that and work through that. So this way there's clarity on what the leader is going to be expected to lead out in. But then when you have that, you can give clarity on what the people are joining into, right? Hey, the reason why I want you to join this small group this fall, whatever it is, you're listening to, spring, fall semesters, whatever it may be, is for this specific purpose, because we're going to go through this, and the result of that, hopefully, Lord willing, is that you're going to turn around and make your own disciple. Or the result of you joining this group, and we go through the book of Romans, right, is now you know everything there is to know about the book of Romans and how to apply it to your life and live it out. So giving clarity all around, that the leader has clarity on what they're going to lead out in, but then the people have clarity on what they're committing to. So then they're going to be like, oh, hey, look, I'm going to commit to this thing. And week one, I would always say this, week one, ground one, your first meeting, is set the commitment level. Like, hey, we're all going to agree to commit to this unless, and then you fill in the blank. Like, hey, all 3 of us in our little podcast group, we're all going to commit to doing a podcast every single week for the next 13 weeks unless somebody's in the hospital or we can't physically get transportation there. Anything else outside of those 2 excuses, we're committing to it, right? Even if we're not feeling good, if we're hungry. So I think setting that commitment level from the jump, so then everybody else knows, oh, man, I'm committed, you're committed, we're committed. this is clearly what we're committing to. This is the leaders, like, just to where I think sometimes it may feel too legalistic, like, hey, this is what we're going to do, when we're going to do it, what we're going to commit to. But I think the beautifulness of that is something that we as the church have been missing the past couple of years, that we've been giving so much freedom of, like, hey, do what you want, go through what you want. Then the shepherd has no idea what the leaders are actually even teaching, like, because we're scared to just give clarity and, like, hey, this is the goal that we want to accomplish. So I would say something I've seen not work is a lack of commitment, or setting that commitment, and a lack of clarity that has not panned out well, which is why we're trying to retool. Which is why we're doing this podcast right now, is to give any leader listening right now clarity on, hey, when you set this small group environment, man, let's make it chill and organic, right? What are some just practical things that make a small group chill and organic? So we got prayer. You gave the example.
The prayer boxes.
The prayer boxes. So an activity helps it make it chill and organic, knowing your demographic and leveraging that to make it kind of chill and organic. What's some other ways to take how you know your demographic of people? Like if I have a bunch of football players and they love football, or I have people who love being creative, or I have a bunch of worship leaders, whatever it may be. Or it's across the board and I got a creative person, a worship leader, and a football player. And it's just across the board, right? Mm-hmm. How can I leverage what I know about them to then shift gears into an organic conversation, go into the goal, either about Jesus, about testimonies, or anything like that.
Tying your point with the organicness is you setting the standard. Mm-hmm. Like you said, you be clear about your commitment or commitment level. You set the standard. So if you have multiple people, even in their interests, but broader than that, even in their walk with Christ, which you're going to have inevitably in the small group, you set the standard. So, okay, one time you're going to paint boxes. The next time you're going to paint or you're going to watch the football game. During those transitions, as the leader, you are leading that, obviously. So you are pioneering your group. So you have to be objective about everything. And it sounds kind of counterintuitive. You have to make things organically happen.
Yeah.
So you have to
to be intentional.
You have to be intentional. Mm-hmm. And so if you're a leader, you have to be intentional. You have to have that end goal in mind. And you have to be very clear about that. So just in those transitions, that's very delicate. So you have to move it. You have to transfer it very delicately.
Yeah. So what are some intentional things to think about to make it organic, but you intentionally chose to make it organic, right? So what are some of the that you guys have either seen work or not work? I would say to kick it off, some intentional things to make things organic, man, is to be willing to fail yourself. Like, be the one willing to go out there all alone. Be like, hey, guys, this is just what God did in my life this week, man. To just, like, you as the leader step foot out there, intentionally knowing that, hey, if I create this atmosphere and I just take a step out and say, man, real quick, guys, I know we're watching the football game, but can I just share my story with you really quick? And you lead out in that. Hey, man, and vulnerability creates vulnerability. The more you are just willing to step out there, even if you fail flat on your face, you're stepping out with the idea of, like, look, I'm going to step out. I'm probably going to fall flat on my face. But if the result of that is all for other people, they start to get it and grasp this idea. Now we're having intentional conversations that felt organic because I lowered the atmosphere by falling on my face. But I chose to fall on my face intentionally to create this atmosphere. So just willing to step out. Like, hey, guys, huddle up real quick. Can I just share my story with you real quick? Hey, I shared mine. Hey, can anybody else? Man, where are you at right now? Right? To where you're just willing to step out. And if you fail, cool. If not, cool. But you did it knowing the purpose of that, the goal, the target, was to get everybody else on board to huddle up and kind of get involved. So I think something that I've seen work is just that leader stepping out, willing to fail or not fail, with the goal of, by me doing this, it's going to include everybody else.
Yeah. And an example for that, we were over in Vanuatu, a small island off of Australia, and the leader of the group was like, hey, let's practice our testimonies for when we, go and preach. And everybody was just like hitting the very generic points of their life, blah, blah, blah. And I was up next. Two other guys went before me. I was up next. And I felt the Lord be like, hey, this is a moment where I want to move. And so you need to be obedient in this. Like, share your story. Like, go full on. And so I so deathly afraid, because like that's very vulnerable, and I was like, I don't really know these people like that, but you know, appropriate vulnerability, like you were saying, it's so powerful. And the two guys, they were just like, yeah, let's just get it over with, you know, we can go eat. But
no,
the Lord was like, no, I want to do something, and something tonight. I'm going to move in you guys. And so it happened. And then for like the next 2 hours, we were like speaking in tongues, like praying, like the Spirit was so evident in that chapel in a whole nother country, because someone was vulnerable. So it's, you don't want to quench the Spirit, and you want to be appropriate in your vulnerability. Don't just be like, hey, you know, just throw a laundry list, emotionally vomit on your small group, but, you know, step into that. As the leader, step into that vulnerability. Lead your small group in that vulnerability.
That's good. Anything you'd like to add?
I don't think it's on the same answer as that, but like I don't know if we'll touch base on it, but I do think there's moments that are good for us to be awkward though. Like in the time of like my small group, I'm very closed off. Like I'm like, people don't get to know my life, people don't get to know my emotions, like stuff like that. And so there came a time where it was like talk about your testimony, and it was towards the end of our small group to where if I was developing like being open with people, and back then like even Josh, I'm like, I don't want to do it, I don't want to talk about it, I don't want to. But now I like realize like there are times in our small group to where like our leader should push us to share it, like in like you have to gauge that and discern that. But there's times where I've seen people who are scared to pray out loud, and like I've seen leaders slowly urge them and like slowly push them to now they can lead corporate prayer, and like beautiful moments where it's like, no, it's okay if they're silent for a little bit, like which is a little bit different from the question that you asked, but I was just thinking about that. And
that's the balance that as the leader, right? Anybody out there listening, leading, you have to discern, right? When to be patient with somebody, right? Hey, Tim, you know, making up a guy. Hey, Timothy, man, you don't want to share this week? All right, cool, man. Man, take this week, think it over, pray it over. Let's even grab coffee this week if you want to practice sharing it with me first before coming back to this group. Like, I'm going to be patient with you this week.
Well, it's called earn your right to coach. Like, we use that in the workforce, but like you earn your right to coach. If my small group leader comes up to me immediately and was like, all right, we're going to share a story, like you didn't earn my trust. Like, and so like in my small group, I got to experience that, like the trust was like earned, like, and it was like, that was a moment where I had to break through and be like, no, like she's earned it. Like, I just need to step out now. And it was a good moment to where like I did, like we sat there in silence for a little bit, and then I realized like I was being stubborn, and it was like, no, like everyone's here is accepting. And like my small group leader was just, she did an amazing job at like discerning it and giving me like an equal amount of push as to being like, quit.
And that's the thing, right? Like, so where as the leader, if you, man, you're sensing, you know, whatever, Timothy's just not wanting to share for whatever the reason may be, and you just sit there and egg Timothy, like, man, let's share. You know, trust us, be vulnerable. It's okay. God's got you. God's going to use you. That may cause Timothy not to come back, right? So to balance being patient, but also with pushing people. And I think the key goes back to clarity, right? Hey, Timothy, look, this week, bro, it's totally okay. Man, let's talk through it this week. Help me understand why you don't want to share. Like, let's talk through that reason of why you don't want to before we even get to you sharing, right? So let's meet up this week. Let's talk through why you don't want to share, what's causing this anxiety. Let's work through that. And then the expectation, though, man, is, look, hey, we're all sharing in this group, man. And you said you're committed to it, so next week, man, I would love for you to come and share, knowing that we've already worked through this hurdle of why you don't want to. So that balance of, hey, I'm going to push you, right, for your good, for the group's good, or I'm going to be patient for your good and for the group's good, which is just a hard balance. There's not like a set answer. It's just a hard balance to kind of manage. One thing I've seen, just another thing, kind of rambling on here, that has not worked well is, yes, the leader, like you as the leader, you need to lead out, right, man? You lead the discussion, you lead the prayer, like you lead out, but also you got to give room for everybody else to talk, right? Nobody wants to go to a small group where they just hear this one person ramble for an hour, right? So in the moments like, hey, if you just went on a rant, a tangent for 5 minutes, take a breath. Hey, how's that sit with you? Where are your thoughts at? What are you thinking? Asking intentional questions that you may already know the answer to, but just want to get them talking. Like, hey, we're about to read this passage in John 15. Hey, anybody know what's going on here? Right? Does anybody know who's talking? Oh, Jesus is talking. Like getting to where it's not just you talking and not just you sharing, but you also have to lead, right? To where if they're giving you feedback and stuff like that and it starts to go off the rails, you have to lead. Like, hey, thank you for that. Thank you for that idea. Thank you for that input. This is what this means, though. So leading out 100%, not forsaking leading and forsaking leading the conversation and communicating, and at the same time balancing that with giving everybody else the opportunity to talk, right? And sometimes the way you do that, man, just ask a lot of intentional questions of, hey, why do you think that? How did you get to that point? What took place to go from here to there? Like who, what, when, where, why, how? Just ask a lot of pointed questions to get them talking. And then just ask each other like, oh, hey, Kayla, Riley just said that. Do you agree with him? Why or why not? Like just get people talking, right?
Don't do that on the first day. But yeah.
create a debate on the first day.
Yeah, let's.
I'm glad you said that.
The non-confrontational people not show up.
And man, one thing, week 1 of a small group is all else fails. You want to create an atmosphere where people trust each other. They feel open to come back, and they just feel safe. To where, man, it's a marathon, not a sprint, right? Hey, this first week, I want to get everybody to know each other, right? Everybody knows each other's names. We're comfortable meeting here. Here's the purpose of why we're going to meet. Here's the commitment level we're all going to agree to. Here's my story. I'm going to share it with you guys. Anybody just feel open to, maybe does anybody relate with my story, right? Like, okay, let me hear why or how. To just create that atmosphere of like trust. Everybody's good. You cast the vision for the whole group. Like, hey guys, I see it in December when we all peace out and we all now have our own groups. We're all going to know how to read the Bible for ourselves and do this stuff right. The vision, right? But you do that by creating that atmosphere from the jump. So it's not like week 8 and you're like, I still don't know who this person is sitting next to me, but you're cool, right? But creating that safe and chill atmosphere.
So does that beg the question, is there a cap of how big a small group should be?
Yeah, well, I mean, in the Bible, right? It's not like 3 Timothy chapter 2 only had 10 people in a small group, right?
Right.
Take the format of Jesus. Jesus had 12, right? But inside that 12, he had 3. Inside that 3, he had 1. Like, it kept getting smaller and smaller. For us, we're shooting for like 3 to 4 people in a group, just for strategic kind of reasons, right? If it's week 1 and we want everybody to share their story and everybody has a 30-minute testimony and there's 8 people in your group, I ain't trying to sit there for 3 hours, right? Realistically, right? Or what are the odds that me as a leader can pour to every single person individually the best way they need with 8 people or 9 people, 12 people, whatever it may be. So we're shooting for that 3 to 4 gap, but with the idea of the purpose of this, right, is so these 3 to 4 turn into more 3 to 4, turn into more 3 to 4, turn into more 3 to 4, towards more focused. But that number, man, it just depends on the capacity of the leader and just what the goal of the group is. Like if we're doing a Bible study through Romans, I could take 10 people through the book of Romans. But if my goal is to disciple you to make disciples, then at least for me, it needs to be a smaller gap. So it just depends on the purpose of the group and the capacity of the leader, I would say. Well, that's cool, man. Well, appreciate you guys hopping on today, being with us, Kayla, Riley. Appreciate all you people listening right now, man. Start your own group. Go lead one. Create that atmosphere. And feel free to track with us for the next 12 weeks as we give kind of just pro tips on leading people to make disciples. Peace out.